with Peggy, and she can tell us and tell you guys more implicitly about the program and kind of what makes TCU unique, and how it's a very advantageous time to perhaps be joining us. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that, Peggy?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mick. And Mick, while you were helping John, they introduced themselves just a little bit in their background. But I'm not sure you and John got to hear that. Do you want to do that real quick, and then?
Yeah, let's do that first. Sure.
Okay. Well, my name is Desi. I'm a current senior at the College of William & Mary, and I am on the volleyball team here. And I actually talked to the coach at TCU. His name is Eric, and he told me just to take my GMAT this summer and just find a way to be competitive and apply, and I'll be applying this fall to try to get scholarship as well and be in the MBA program.
Fantastic. And what is it that you're interested in, Desi?
I am an econ and accounting major, so I don't know, I really want to get into finance, but I haven't taken any finance courses yet. I've taken like finance and econ based classes and international finance, but I haven't taken any nitty-gritty classes, and I'll be taking that this semester.
Great.
But I've always seen myself in the business world, so trying to expand through that, I guess.
Okay. Sandeep, what about you?
Hello. Yeah, I am electrical engineering major, and I have worked in energy sector and manufacturing sector, cement manufacturing sector. So I'd basically like to get into operation consulting, and in energy sector or in energy trading. So I heard that Texas is a pretty good place to be in energy sector, or
it's probably the best place, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what fascinated me to apply to TCU, basically.
Okay, great. Okay, so thanks for sharing that, you guys. And then, we'll just hand it off to Peggy, and she can kind of talk about the program a little bit. And then after you're done, Peggy,
You're breaking up a little bit there, Mick. I don't know. So I have a little trouble hearing you. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about
that. In and out a little bit.
All right.
But to give you a frame of reference about the university, I don't know how well you know us, especially Sandeep, applying from outside the U.S. But TCU is an interesting place. And sometimes people will ask me, what's the one thing that stands out about the school? And I actually personally don't think it's one thing. I think it's a combination of things that make us special. And to me, it's a combination of size, resources, and location. And those three things together allow us to create really a different environment here. The size, we're a relatively small university, about 10,000 students, so relatively small in U.S. standards. Our entering class for our full-time MBA program is really only 50 to 60 students, and that's a really powerful number. And when I say powerful, I mean powerful in terms of opportunities for those students. Because even though it's a relatively small program, it's based in a major university.
Yep.
So to have the resources of a major university at the disposal of 50 to 60 students. And then the third thing I mentioned was location. So to have that in a location where there are many of the world's top companies have headquarters here or branch operations here. And not that all of our students are going to work here, but to have exposure and opportunity to interact with those kind of companies while you're a student is a real benefit. And I'm sure that Mick and John can talk a little bit about how those things in combination gave them opportunity for experiences that they might not have found at other schools. But let me give you an example when I talked about being a relatively small program with the resources of a major university. For example, our MBA Career Services Center, there's 5 full-time professionals in that center to service the student group of 50 to 60 MBA students. So think about what that means for you in terms of opportunity. Yeah, you know, they're going to be very much involved in your career search. So that's just one example. Another example of resources, we have a person who has a very strong consulting background, whose full-time position it is to be the director of experiential learning. And what that means at Neeley is creating programs and opportunities beyond the traditional internships to layer a different experience on your resume. So Sandeep, you mentioned you had an interest in consulting. You know, a big part of those experiences are consulting projects that our students do. And not every school has a person whose full-time job is to run programs like that and work very closely with students like that. So again, we feel that our students have a distinct advantage because of those things. And then the last thing I would add is, I think because of our size and our emphasis on experiential learning and really kind of where we are at this point in time as a school, we're very much an up-and-coming program. There's a lot of excitement around here with the students. It's a culture of building, of encouragement, of collaboration, and of building the school up. So if you're looking for a place where you really want to leave a mark, where you want to have some leadership roles, where you want to be able to influence other people, for those reasons, this would be a great place for those things. So I'm going to stop because obviously I'm very opinionated about it.
Very biased, but
Nick and John add to that.
Sure. I mean, I can start a little bit. I think to kind of play off what you just said, the fact that it's really an up-and-coming program, and the fact that it's gaining such a national reputation, that I really wanted to be part of that. I didn't want to go to a big state school where I would be kind of lost in the shuffle, so to speak. But just like Peggy said, for me, there's a lot of leadership opportunities. I mean, speaking frankly, I wish I would have taken advantage of a lot of them sooner. But for example, you know, I'm doing this leadership engagement and development team thing where I basically am a mentor to first-year teams because there's so much work to do and everything. And if they ever need help, I'm kind of the go-to guy there. And that's something I'm really looking forward to as a second year. John can kind of speak more towards stuff maybe in the first semester and first year. He's, as I mentioned before, he's our class vice president and does a lot of work for case competitions and experiential learning and stuff like that. So, John, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I can definitely speak about case competitions in general. However, you know, I think just want to kind of touch on a couple things that Peggy had mentioned earlier, in that I think everyone in the building knows your goals, yeah, and is definitely there to help you achieve those goals. And so she mentioned about 3 or 4 people there. And I remember one instance after class, a professor pulling me aside and specifically talking to me about some opportunities that he had for me and some people that he wanted to talk to. And I hadn't even talked to that professor about what my goals were. It's just such a tight-knit community that people know your goals, and they're there to support you if you're not letting them. I went to a big state school, went to a huge business school, and I think it's just definitely a distinctive experience at the Neeley School. So I can talk a little bit about case competitions, and experiential learning is certainly something that Peggy had mentioned earlier. And what it allows you to do is it gives you a live environment to practice everything we're learning in the classroom, and you get live feedback from judges who are professionals in their fields. And it's just really an outstanding experience, number one, to compete against other top schools, but secondly, to also showcase your talents to recruiters and to just to grow professionally as you get that kind of feedback.
Okay, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to welcome Edwin. Glad you've joined us. We were just getting some background information on the program and everything, and I think you probably came in when Peggy was talking about it, and hopefully you got to hear a little bit about what I think and what John thinks. So at this point, I think we're just going to open up to you guys in terms of a Q&A, and really anything's on the table. If you want to ask about the admissions process, certainly Peggy would be more than happy to help you with that. If you want to ask about student life or just classes in general, anything really, John and I can handle that. But the main thing is this is 20 minutes for you guys, and we're happy to answer anything you want to throw at us. So don't be shy and ask us a question or two.
Hi, Mick. I would like to ask one question about what specific courses are available in energy consulting, energy trade, related to energy trade.
Okay, so in terms of energy, I mean, there's a lot of good recruiting there, and we always have, like John said, there's an energy case competition, which is great for experiential learning and gets you right in the mix. There's also just in terms of companies recruiting, I think maybe Peggy can speak a little bit more to this, and maybe even John, but there are definitely a lot of big energy companies, not even DFW, but also come down from Houston and recruit as well.
And
so
I didn't hear the full question. I didn't hear the full question, but it's worth mentioning that we have also some very specific energy MBA curriculum,
right.
that you have the opportunity to take in what we call an industry emphasis. So in addition to a functional concentration, Sandeep, let's say that your concentration may be in finance, but you want to put that in the context of the energy industry, then you have a good 9 to 12 hours of very specific energy classes that you're able to take. And these courses are taught by PhD qualified but industry experts, people who have spent the bulk of their careers not in academia but in the energy field. And the reason I mention that because not only do they know the content, but their contacts are very rich. And so, for example, there's an Energy CEO Forum course where one of the professors, who his name is Steve Palco, and he launched one of the major oil and gas companies in this region. He brings in people from his personal network to talk with the students and help them understand trends and what's going on in the industry. So you have coursework, you have case competitions, you will interact. Also in those same classes are people who are in our evening program, so who are working full-time currently taking classes in the evening, and you'll run into some of those folks specifically in those energy classes. You'll have a chance to network with them and their companies as well.
Oh, can I just add to that, Sandeep?
Right, I would be just too real quick, but during the incoming students, their first case competition before they even get into class is with Encore Electric Delivery. So that's a huge company in Texas, huge energy company, and before you even step foot in class, you're going through a big case competition with them. So, there's a lot of opportunities.
I can see a lot of.
Answer your question a little bit?
Yeah. I can see there's a lot of scope out there.
Yeah. Okay, what about Edwin or Desi? You guys have some questions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess since I'll be applying straight from my undergrad, do you have any tips or anything that I can do to make myself stand out in the admissions process? I know you guys don't take a lot straight from undergrad, and I'm very realistic. I would love to go to TCU, but I just wanted to get the most information I possibly could.
Sure. Peggy, do you want to answer that one?
Well, I can answer her question, but then you and John might also speak to, kind of why we do value the work experience as we do, and as a student, what your classmates are bringing to you. But I'll answer the question about admission. And you're right, we don't often admit someone directly from college. Some years it's 1 or 2 students, some years it's no students. It just kind of depends. The students who we do admit directly from college, first and foremost, because it's an exception, they need to be exceptional candidates. So there's a lot more pressure on those folks for academics. Then in addition to very strong test scores and very strong academics, there needs to be an adequate, not just adequate, but a robust frame of reference. So what is it that you'll bring to the table that will help add value to the experience of other folks? So have you had some rich internships? Have you had We've had students that have started their own business, and we have a student who was admitted directly out of college, but she had been running her own business in addition to being a full-time student for several years, and had done so quite successfully, as a matter of fact. Paid for her MBA. So, reach back and find those kinds of things, because not only is it important for you to be able to add value to the other people in the room, but it's important for you to have an appropriate frame of reference. So
Absolutely.
It's not just about the classes, right? So that's what you're going to need to go back and really think about. And Mick, you and John might kind of talk about, for the other folks, for Sandeep and for Edwin, a little bit about the kinds of experiences your classmates have and how you've learned. I'm trying to point out some of the diversity of experience, I guess. Is what I'm trying to do.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I can start to talk about that. I mean, I think we're all diverse in a way, but I certainly am. My angle is I'm an older student. I mean, I'm 30 program when I was 33. I'm 34 now. I was a teacher for 5 years, and then after that, I worked in private education. So that's kind of my background. And then you'll certainly have quite a few people with an engineering or technical background. And then you also have, but then again, there's we had Lindy, who came for something really artsy, but from the business. But she still kind of ran her own business on the side and still had that, business, framework. And now she just got this great internship working on Wall Street for J.P. Morgan. Yeah. So we try to bring in quite a few candidates and place them on teams and within the cohort in general, just so everyone can just kind of pick and choose from everyone else's experiences and gain a lot of knowledge from our classmates in general.
Yeah,
John,
and just to add to that, I think when you think about the amount of team-based work that we do at the Neeley School, I think it's important that every single group has a diversity in the way people think and their backgrounds and their experiences. So for me, I think that was one of the best learning experiences was, I had someone on my team from India who thought about problems and the world totally differently than I did. And so that's part of the challenge when you get into the real business world is what's your perspective? How do you solve problems? What is your role on a team, right? Everybody serves that a little bit differently. And so I think, from your perspective, it's how are you going to contribute to those groups? How do you contribute in teams? And what's your skill set that you're bringing to the classroom? As Mick mentioned, there's somebody else in our class who worked for Teach for America, and he brought a great perspective to the classroom. So there's no one right background to have, but it is important to have that perspective, as Peggy mentioned, and to know what it is and how you contribute. So I think it's knowing your own story and knowing your own value is the key here.
Thank you.
Does that help, Desi?
Yeah, it definitely does. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hello? Am I breaking up?
Am I audible?
Now you are.
So I would like to ask one question. What are the chances we get while at TCU to work for something related to society or social economy?
Okay, I got the first half of your question, but you're kind of breaking up during the second half of it. Could you repeat that real quick?
Yeah, hello. So I want to. I have a query that what are the chances you get to work for societies for some different causes while learning at TCU?
Did you just ask about working while you were a student?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, you have as international students, you have the opportunity to work in internships and summer internships like the domestic students do. And our career services team and our international student team are very familiar with the visa requirements and can help guide you through that process. you have, in some ways, different opportunities than the domestic students. You still have a lot of opportunities, but you would be looking for internships with companies that are willing to sponsor international students. So it's a different set of companies. But again, our international students have done well. I'd have to look at a list to see where everybody is, has been this summer, but just off the top of my head, I can think of one student who's with Amazon in Florida this summer. That's Yvonne. I'm not 100% sure where everyone else is, but again, it may be different opportunities, but some great opportunities. Sometimes I'm a little hesitant to put our numbers out because they're so strong. It makes it sound like people get jobs like that, you know. But you know, 100% of our students do have internships. And then post-MBA employment, when you look at 90 days out, you know, we're typically around 90% employed 90 days out after graduation, and that is true for the international students as well. But I don't want to make it sound like they didn't work very hard for that, and they did. You know, John and Mick can tell you, whether you're an international student or whether you're a domestic student, your job search and your career development is really a daily part of the life of an MBA student. You're constantly networking, constantly redefining and fine-tuning what your career goals are, constantly looking for opportunities. So I don't want to paint a picture where you don't have opportunity, but I also don't want to make it sound like you just, something's handed to you because you're going to work hard for it. Does that help, Sandy? You're welcome.
Edwin, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm more in the opposite spectrum from Desi. I'm an older student. I'm 36 now, and I have 9 years of work experience. I know some programs that don't necessarily consider candidates with my profile and tend to tell you, oh, you can go to an executive MBA program. I'm not looking for that type of program because I'm looking for more for a career change.
Sure.
Is my type of profile one that fits in your program?
Absolutely. You know, we're more than happy to work with students from all kinds of different backgrounds and all different levels of work experience. I think you put your finger on it right there, though. It's about career change. That's really why somebody would look at a full-time program. Depending on your background, where you're coming from, and depending on where it is that you want to land, you know, your options may look a little bit different than someone else who has a different set of experiences. Your options may be stronger, or they may be, I don't want to say weaker, but just different. It all depends on how it comes together, how your background, the experiences in the program, and your goals align. But Mick and John can tell you, they've got folks in the program in their class that are more experienced, and there's folks in the program who are less experienced. I would say 80% of the students fall between 2 and 7 years. But you know, I've had folks who have had 20 years of experience through the full-time MBA program also.
Yeah, I mean, I can go off that a little bit. Like I said earlier, I'm 34. I entered the program when I was 33, and I had 10 years of work experience. For me, just maybe as an admissions tip, I would say that if you're an older student, it's going to be pretty important to let the admissions committee and the school in general know why exactly now you want the MBA and what kind of goals you have for your post-MBA career. I think that's probably going to be pretty important. Like for me, I mean, I was in education before. Like I said, I was a teacher, and I was in private education for a few years. But I knew I probably wanted to stay in education, but I wanted to go in higher education. And so I was pretty upfront about that in terms of my application, and even when I got into the program and I was doing my job search, I did look for some, I would say, quote unquote, typical, corporate jobs, and it was interesting to me. But I kept it pretty, I guess, I had some blinders on that I definitely did want to stay with going into education, higher education. So just as long as you have a solid story, you know where you've been, and you know where that's going to take you post MBA, your age really isn't anything to worry about, I don't think at all.
And Edwin, just to add to that, I would just make sure that the program really fits your goals. So not only knowing what your goals are, but just that the program is the right fit, especially being a non-typical student. Just know that program intimately and be able to describe specifically how your goals match the program. I think that really, those two things is the key combination.
Thanks a lot.
Sure, of course. Okay, so I'm just looking at the clock here. So looks like it's about 6:30 or 6:25. So we've got 5 minutes left. So if you guys want to, throw off one more question each, and then we can wrap this thing up.
If you have questions.
Desi, you have any other questions?
No, I'm just preparing to take my GMAT in September, so.
Okay. Well, one thing is that when I was doing my competitive analysis this summer, I was looking at other schools and kind of how they do the admissions process and everything. We're the only school that I looked at, and especially I know for sure in Texas, that offers free GMAT.
Yeah, I did see that. I actually really do appreciate that. I wasn't able to do it because I had a really busy schedule this summer, but I kept checking back. So
There's another one posted for September, Desi.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you, by no means do you need to do that. You're not required to do that. It's just there as a resource. So many of our students, it's been some time since they've taken a standardized test. So, Sandeep, have you already tackled GMAT?
Yes, I already taken in August 2014, and I got a score of 700.
Great. You don't have to tell us your score on. But thanks. What about you, Edwin?
That's good.
I'm sitting on September 29th.
Oh, great. Okay. That sounds fantastic, and that way it's in plenty of time to apply for round one. Are you guys all targeting round one?
I guess so.
Hopefully.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that my chances are pretty low right now coming from undergrad, but and I mean, I do think that years of experience in the workforce would be a huge advantage for anyone in my groups and stuff. So I'm not trying to be I'm trying to be realistic here, but would that be the best round for me to apply in?
Yeah, and Desi, please don't think we're not beating up on you, okay?
No, not at all.
But from my perspective, it's always best to apply for the round where you can put your strongest application together. Mm-hmm. So, Sandeep, since you've already tackled GMAT, you've got that ready to go, then I would say absolutely apply for round one. That's when you have the most space and the most scholarship dollars available, because I know that's usually a consideration for full-time candidates. And then Edwin and Desi, since you guys are still working on your GMAT, I would say apply when you feel like you can put your best application together. So if for some reason when you take your GMAT you feel like I really could do better on GMAT, I think it would be a good idea for me to repeat that GMAT, then maybe you target a later round. I'm not saying you have to repeat your GMAT, just if you feel like you're going to have a stronger application at that point.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, I just want to jump in. I mean, I say with Peggy, I mean, I took it twice. I applied, I was going to apply, I think, in round 2, and I just wasn't that happy with my score. It wasn't terrible. It was probably within the range that we typically accept. Then I took it again, and I applied in round 3 and still got in. So exactly what Peggy said. Just don't rush it. I mean, round 1 and 2 are great, especially for scholarships and whatnot, but you definitely want to apply when you have your strongest application.
Uh-huh. Anyone else have questions? I feel like I kind of cut you off your questions.
No, you did a great job introducing the school, so you answered a lot of my questions.
And if any of you guys, Edwin, I don't think you were on yet when I said this, but if any of you guys want a chance to be matched up with people who are, specifically in your area of interest, you're more than welcome to let me know that. You can email either Mick or myself after this session, and we'll be glad to make those connections for you. Because I'd mentioned to Desi, we have someone who here in the incoming class who's from William and Mary, and Sandeep, obviously we've got some folks from India, if that's the connection you want us to make, or if you want to talk to someone specifically who's pursuing Energy MBA, we can help you make that connection as well.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Okay, so in terms of email addresses and everything, what I'll do, I've got everyone's email address here, and what I'll do is I'll just drop everyone a line tonight or maybe in the morning saying thank you and giving you guys Peggy's contact information, my contact information, and John Tate's as well. And that way, don't be afraid to reach out to us, because I know this was pretty short, 30 minutes. If there's anything that you guys, forgot or think about tomorrow, next coming days, don't be afraid to give us a shout, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mick, Peggy, and John.
All right, you're welcome. I'm glad everyone had a chance to join us this evening, and hopefully it was very informative for everyone. It definitely was for us. So.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. With that, I'm gonna stop recording, and I'll hang up. And like I said, we'll reach out and be in touch next couple days. Okay. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
All right. Bye bye.